name is Erica from Me to You Paper Crafts, and about 4 days ago I posted a video on YouTube showing you how I had made this card following a design by Don Griffiths, and I loved it so much that I decided to make a set of 4 cards. And I did promise that I would do a video on creating a box to hold these cards. But the first thing I want to explain to you is using the envelope punch board for creating an envelope. So I've already made 3 envelopes using the envelope punch board, and I want to make you aware that when you make an envelope for an A2 card, it does become slightly larger than a purchased A2 card. So this, envelope. This is an A2 envelope, and if you take a look, when I line these up, you're going to see that the handmade envelope is a little bit longer or wider across. The height is pretty much the same, but it is a little bit wider. So when you make the box for the A2 card, it needs to be, again, a little bit larger than what they indicate when you make the box. So if you look at your envelope punch board, you'll see that for a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch envelope, you need an 8 by 8 piece of paper. And when you make a box, whenever you make a box for any size card, you increase it by 1 inch. So to make the box for the A2 card, you would need a 9 by 9 piece of paper. But like I said, when the envelope becomes, a little bit wider, you need the box to be a little bit wider. So I tried it out with a 9 1/8 by 9 1/8 sheet of cardstock to make the box, and it works out perfectly. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is I need one more envelope for my set of envelopes, so I'm going to use the envelope punch board and show you how I made that. All right, so for an A2 card, a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card, I need a piece of paper 8 by 8 to make the envelope, and you're going to do your first score at 3 1/2. All right, so this is already cut at 8 by 8, so we're doing the envelope now. So I go to 3 1/2, and I take my scoring tool that comes with the envelope punch board, and the first thing I always do is I do a PS I love you. So punch and score is how I always refer to it in my classes. So line it up at 3 1/2, and you're going to punch, and then you're going to score. All right, then you don't have to worry about measurements anymore. You are going to simply line up the score line that you just made with this pointy thing, which is called the score guide. So I'll put that in, line it up with that score line. Again, PS, punch and score. And you keep rotating the paper over to the left, 180 degrees. And you're punching and scoring. So punch and score. Line it up again with that score line and punch and score. All right, so there are the the 4 sides that I've done for this envelope, and the envelope punch board comes with its own corner rounder, so I always like to at least corner round the top and the bottom flap of the envelope. So you just place it in the back and punch it. All right, so there's our envelope. So to put this together, you basically score all the sides. Well, actually not score, you're burnishing all the sides using the bone folder that comes with the envelope punch board. Like that. This one I didn't fold quite right. Let's pull that up a bit tighter. There we go. And basically what I do is I put a little bit of tape along these 2 flaps here and then tape that up like that. And then your envelope is ready to go. All right? And this fits your card that you've made, okay, your A2 card. So you'll notice that this A2 card, you know, you're basically taking your 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, cutting it in half, and then folding it. It is actually a little bit bigger. So in reality, for the envelope punch board, the envelope that you make is a little bit too big. They've just given you the measurements a little bit too big. But that's okay, because I've now worked out to make the box. So going back to what I said earlier, here is a piece of cardstock. This is a piece of crumb cake cardstock. And as I said earlier, to make a box, you always take the envelope measurement for the paper and increase it by 1 inch. So if the envelope was 8 by 8, the box is now going to be 9 by 9, but I'm going to make it a tad larger. So I'm going to do a 9 1/8 by 9 1/8. So I've already cut this to 9 1/8 by 9 1/8. All right? You follow the instructions to make the envelope to make the box, but you're going to be creating 2 score lines instead of 1. So you're still starting out at 3.5. That doesn't change. The score line start is at 3.5. That doesn't change. So I put in my paper at 3.5. All right, and I'm going to punch and I'm going to score. Now, the paper goes over the edge of the punch board, so be very careful, because you can you know, crease it or rumple it or put a hole in it if you're not careful. This will meet up when we score the other side, so don't worry about it. All right. Now, when you make a box, all you do now is, we started at 3.5. You're going to push it over to the left to 4.5. Typically, the boxes are 1 inch in diameter or in depth. So we're going to move this over to 4.5, and we're going to punch and we're going to score. Now again, like the envelope, we don't do any measurements again. We just ignore this. We're going to just line up our score lines with the score guide, this pointy thing, and we're going to punch and score again. So punch and score, move it over to the second score line, punch and score, rotate your paper, line it up, punch and score, line it up, punch and score, rotate it again, punch and score, move it over to the second score line, punch and score. And that was our last side. So there you go, there you have your box. So now when you take your handmade envelope, when you place it in that center section, you'll notice that it is wide enough to fit your card. So we'll put this together. So before I actually fold up my score lines, I like to cut. So you're going to make sure you rotate your box to the way you want to put your envelopes in. So we're going to be putting them in horizontally. So you rotate this horizontally. And then again, if you want to round your corners, you can do that. And you're going to be cutting up these score lines here on these 4 sides, okay? And when I do that, I also notch it out a little bit so that it folds nicely. So I just notch it a little bit on an angle like that. So you're going to cut and notch, rotate it around. You're going to cut and notch and cut and notch, okay? So now you can burnish all of your edges. This is Coordinations cardstock, so it has a bit of a texture or a bit of a pattern on one side and it's plain on the other. So I like the textured side, so this is going to be the outside of my box. So I'm going to burnish up all of my edges for the box and lift up your little tabs. This Coordinations cardstock is really nice to work with. It's makes great boxes. All right. Now, for folding up a box, what you need to, oh, I'm going to round my corners. I always like a rounded corner. So let me just round the top and the bottom. There we go. So putting your box together, you need to really be careful, and I've done this before, is not to, when you're gluing it together, not to, you know, push these edges down, because then the envelopes and the cards won't fit in there. You really need to make sure that when you assemble the box, you keep these sides at a right angle. So what I have found really helps me is I've taken an acrylic block that, it's not a Stampin' Up! Block, but it's a block, I don't remember where I got it from, but it seems to be a great height. And I just stick it into the corner so that when I put my box together, I have something to really keep a right angle on the side here, and then I'm able to glue the top up. All right, so when I put my boxes together, I learned this trick from, I can't remember who, I think it's the lady from England, Poodles, I think, Sam, I think her first name is Sam. She's now, instead of fiddling with sticky strips, she's now using glue dots, and I think it's brilliant. So you're going to put a glue dot on this little flap here, and a glue dot on this other flap over here. That's perfect for that. And then I will put a couple of glue dots along. Now, be careful. The bottom is, no, that's wrong. The sides, sorry, the left and right side are going to go up like that, and then this is going to come on top. So you want to put a few glue dots along the edge on these two sides here. So I'll put one, whoops, there. And I'll put one in the middle. Oh, I missed a few on my roll here, and I'll put one at the end on that side, and then I'm going to do this side, one at the end. I think I'm missing some, I went too quickly on my roll and used up glue dots before their time, and one at the bottom. All right, so now I'm ready to assemble. So I'm going to put my acrylic block right in that corner. Make sure this is at a 90-degree angle. All right, I'm going to push in my little flap at the bottom and then lift this up. And secure it. Then I'm just going to move my acrylic block over to the other corner. Try and tuck in my little flap here. There we go. And get this in underneath. There you go. And then make sure it's at a right angle. And then stick the side of your box up. And there you go. A great box to fit. I haven't decorated this last one yet, but I will. Your last envelope, and then your cards will all fit in there. Now, another thing, when I put my cards in my box, if they've got, you're using Stampin' dimensionals to give some height to some of your elements, I will sometimes actually flip them over like that so that they fit in the box. All right, so I'll flip that one over to the top and then put them in the box. Just be careful with your anything that's sticking up. There we go. All right, so there's your card box, and it fits your handmade envelopes perfectly. So I hope you enjoyed my tip. Remember, A2 card size, increase by 1 inch. From 8 by 8 for the envelope to 9 by 9, add 1/8 of an inch. So you're cutting your cardstock 9 1/8 by 9 1/8. Happy stamping, everyone. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. Bye for now.